issue. It's amazing how our systems don't keep up with our understanding of what the threats are. And it's expensive. You know, if you have a cesspool, you have to pay to put in a septic system. It's pretty expensive. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about what the possibility of investment from this tax base into the watersheds? So I guess the background here is I'm very familiar with the New York City watersheds, how they worked with the communities in their reservoir area.
Right. That was brilliant. That was revolutionary.
That was my nickname.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Wow. To do the watershed protection in the Adirondacks.
In Delaware County, and so the reservoirs that are up in those counties, and the Pepacton and the can't remember the others.
But New York was ahead of the curve in terms of understanding how important water was.
Watershed ag.
Yeah.
So that's who was the
wow.
With
well, thanks to your dad.
He's the greatest. But that was in. They had identified the land practices around the water around those reservoirs were really important to improvements on and invest in, and so it was a pretty small tax base that and they couldn't afford to make those changes, and so New York City invested in making those changes.
Right.
And I know a lot of people have looked at that model in the past, but for one of the things that I think we're having issues with Vermont is, again, who's going to pay for changes and adjustments into our systems, even our infrastructure. We have such a small tax base, and yet, so how do we support one another in this bigger watershed area of figuring out? I mean, like you're pointing out exactly, the municipal systems we've underinvested in them.
Oh gosh, and relied so heavily on, in my town, we totally rely on that suite of expensive homes.
Yeah, and you rely on you don't, you have septic, but the sewer systems are, and they're a huge infrastructure investment, which we're kind of like trying to figure out, like how do we do this? And then,
we
13 towns that have their septic systems.
We are going more towards communal, because we have a lot of seasonal communities along the coast, small. I mean, they were back in the 30s and 40s, they were little cottages, and people would come down during the summer and then they close them up for the winter and go back into the interior. Now people are year-round and they've winterized them, which means they're using the septic, and some of those septic systems are underwater. So it's a huge issue, and in our town in particular, there's this huge initiative that the state is pushing towards to make sure that we fix that. And the town is saying the same thing. That's hugely expensive. So they're talking about community systems. So pulling, a high-density community, getting land in the upland somewhere, putting in a system that can pipe that sewage up, fix it, and then discharge it out. So, and I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, there was a proposal for the 3 coastal towns, Saybrook, Westbrook, Clinton, to do a sewer, to actually build a sewage treatment plant on the Connecticut River. You can imagine how well that went over. Because the nice thing about the lower portion of the Connecticut River is that it is unique in that it was too shallow, too many shifting sand dunes at the mouth to provide a port city. So that's the only thing that saved all of the land that has subsequently been protected there. So it's really like the sanctuary site, which fortunately the lower 8 to 10 towns on the Connecticut River are very adamant about protecting that area. So you can imagine that when the state in particular, said, let's put a treatment plant and we'll pipe all of that sewage, treat it, and then dump it out into this large marsh that's right on the Connecticut River. It didn't fly. It was also very expensive.
Right, but I can see that, the mindset, which is, or do we just continue to rely on the systems that we can't quite see? They're old, their grandfathers are under the ground, and we'll just be like, think that's working. Like, and so,
Yeah.
what I think I'm hearing from you though is there is so much infrastructure change that needs to take place right there
Yeah.
on the sound. That
Right.
really looking at supporting change up the watershed is a ways away with significant
Yeah.
infrastructure because there's such significant investment that neighbors have to make who are right there.
Yeah, and there's actually, in terms of looking up the watershed, we're not worried as much about Vermont as we are like Chicopee and Springfield, and there are huge issues there with combined stormwater overflow.
Yep.
So it used to historically be, anytime it stormed a lot, the sewage would just the water coming off the streets would just combine, and it's a mess.
We have
And
the same issue in like Champlain with lots of our
yeah. And in Connecticut, we've slowly been, at great expense and great inconvenience to the communities, separated those.
Yeah.
And it's a huge, huge issue. So the next big push is across the border in Massachusetts. But again, New England's full of these tiny little states and, home rule and everything else, which is why the RCPP is such an amazing opportunity. And it's hard. We're running into issues now of it's just hard to do it in 5 years.
Yeah.
And, I never thought I'd be in a position of I can't give away $180,000 to New York to use this money. I don't know why, but I
can't give it away, meaning that.
I've been trying to engage the
How much money is it?
180,000.
No, so it's interesting though, like, right? It's like one of those things where it's like too little.
Well, I know, but 10,000 is too little. 180,000 is like, I think I'd.
Your system changing. And
Yeah.
Like,
Well, they're also doing this whole nitrogen action plan. So, when I was talking to, it has to go through the districts, and that's part of the problem, is because the districts are not necessarily strong. So, and you have to have match. That's the other thing, which is complicated.
Right.
But there's so much money that's going into Long Island right now to work on nitrogen that I thought, this is a no-brainer for you guys. I mean, you can find the match for all the other money that's coming in, but they still.
so why nitrogen and not phosphorus? So is phosphorus just not
Because nitrogen is what's limiting in Long Island Sound. So that's the thing that if you get too much, if it's naturally limited, in other words, the system operates at a low amount of nitrogen, and you muck that up, you put a lot more nitrogen, that's when we get the low and no oxygen. Because of that, you get the blooms.
Right.
We get paralytic shellfish poisoning now. We're starting to get red tides. Those are all related to excess nutrients that are coming from nitrogen. Whereas your lakes up here are all phosphorus, because that's phosphorus limited. Yeah. Yeah.
Impact is.
It's not easy.
It's doing the same sort of thing. I mean, it's taking oxygen.
Yeah.
It's adjusting the system.
Yeah. Have your towns up here considered centralizing and putting a plant that would centralize your waste?
I don't think that there's a conversation about that. I mean, there's a pretty great distance between the
and rugged distance. Yeah.
But there's no density.
And there's no density.
Yeah.
So
Right.
There's just like
Right.
a little bit here.
Right.
They've done the easy one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we have, I mean, it's exactly what you said. It's fine 360 days of the year.
Yes.
And those 5 days.
Exactly.
You get massive weather events.
Yeah.
You've got the combined.
Oh, and that's where climate change is coming in too, is because we're not.
So now we're having those days are
Yeah.
from 5 to 7 to 10.
Right.
You're having more weather events like that.
And we're seeing that.
We're running this.
Yeah, exactly. Where we're starting to get capacity. I mean, there's always been flooding in Fairfield County because they have so much impervious surface that they just can't absorb it. I'm heartened to see the increasing, just in the lexicon, low impact development, green industry or green infrastructure. That's all great, but we have so much work to do before the land can really absorb that.
Yeah.
Like taking out things.
No, it's interesting. I was just sitting in a meeting with the ag agency, and they were talking about that they recognize that their best investment, so their quickest turnaround, is in agriculture and ag practices.
Yeah.
And that's heartening. That's great and interesting.
Yeah.
But really, then you're like, but the municipal systems, it's such a huge investment. It will make a big impact, but the amount of money that it's going to take to change it is just
Yeah, and it's a politically unpopular,
Yeah.
because nobody's going to get reelected when people's pocketbooks have been impacted. Future generations would, but
Yeah. But we're not. We've spent 30 years of not
yeah.
making that choice, and now we're in this place. So that's sort of an interesting.
Yeah, the only thing I can tell you is that you're not alone. That's unfortunate that it's, but who knows? Technology, I'm a great believer in, for years, Connecticut has been behind the curve in even just allowing alternative septic systems. I mean, there are many different ways to address septic. And, just across the border in Rhode Island, URI has this great demonstration site, and they were showing, like 10 different ways that you could modify your septic system to do a better job. And Connecticut wouldn't permit it.
Vermont.
Yeah, it's tough.
We have so many innovative.
Yeah, that's right.
That can do these things.
Yeah.
We need.
Yeah.
We need to evolve.
It's a slow process.
Yeah.
Slow. But. Well, anyway, thank you for your interest. And thanks for the good things that you do up here in the watershed.
What drew me here is I grew up, was born on Long Island.
Oh, really?
And so played in the Sound, and then we moved to Westchester on the...
Yep, yeah.
And I currently live in Putney on the Connecticut.
Oh,
My dad
yeah.
lived in Norwalk in Connecticut, and I have
Wow.
siblings in Brooklyn, so it just made me connect.
Yeah.
How many,
Yeah.
ways you can
Be a part of the system.
Part of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
You
So
can
that
send a
was
message in a bottle to all of your.
Yeah. There you go.
confident.
Halloween,
But I was like, oh my gosh, I know that place.
Yeah.
It's all connected.
Well, I tell you that when Irene started sending that soil down, that was just like the most amazing example.
Wow.
That
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry for you guys because it really hammered you guys. Wow, that was extraordinary. So, and that's the kind of thing, with the future of climate change that we're going to see more of, not less of, unfortunately. Goodbye, sweet pea. So nice to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks. She's so cute with the pink cheeks. Oh.
Well, thank you.